Hello! Ooh. I'm going to be redrawing and reviewing the updated Ultimate Guide. My goal is to make it through the entire book from the first to the last page and to compare and contrast it with the old version. While I'm doing that, I'm also going to talk about how I designed these characters and the inspirations behind those designs. With that quick bit of exposition out of the way, let's get into the review! The new cover feels busier than the old one, but somehow they managed to make it readable. The cat scratch is fun, but I think it's too much. With the text, each part of the scratch, the background, and the clan symbols all competing for your attention, it's a bit hard to look at. If I were designing the cover, I would have made the background a solid color. It makes everything else stand out more and is less overwhelming. I would have also made the clan symbols all the same color. As it is, the darker ones, Shadow Clan and Sky Clan, blend in too much while the lighter ones, Wind Clan and Star Clan, stand out awkwardly. And, well, look! The old guide did just that. Everything in the new guide is colored, except for the maps. The table of contents is full of gradients that make it hard to read the text. Looking at you, Shadow Clan. I don't know what the designer's obsession with gradients is, but I'm not a fan. The old table may be plain, but it's very readable. The gold on white isn't the best choice considering the bad contrast, but it's a lot easier to read than the small text in the new guide's table of contents. Overall, there are 88 characters covered in the new guide. Of those, 24 of them are Thunder Clan, 16 of them are Shadow Clan, 7 of them are Wind Clan, 8 of them are River Clan, 11 of them are Sky Clan, 4 of them are from the tribe, 11 of them are settlers, and 7 of them are outsiders. There are 7 cats who share entries. The old guide covers 87 characters. 24 of those are in Thunder Clan, 12 are in Shadow Clan, 7 are in Wind Clan, 11 are in River Clan, 5 are in Sky Clan, 4 are from the tribe, 14 are settlers, and 10 are outsiders. 13 sets of characters share entries. And I spent forever gathering this information despite the fact that I could have just checked the wiki, because I'm very intelligent and do not like wasting my time. ThunderClan has the most cats in both guides, which isn't surprising. Shadow Clan's numbers have risen, which makes sense because they've received a lot of focus in recent arcs. Wind Clan's number has stayed the same, but River Clan's has fallen. That's strange, since I've heard that the latest books have a River Clan POV. Sky Clan's number has risen significantly, which makes sense because they moved to the Lake in a Vision of Shadows, so it's easier for them to have significant characters now. The tribe's numbers haven't changed, but there isn't much to say about that. The number of settlers has increased slightly. Meanwhile, the number of outsiders has decreased. The decrease in outsiders may partially be because the section has been renamed from Animals Outside the Clans to Cats Outside the Clans in the updated guide. Midnight was excluded from the new version. Turning to the next page, the introductions text isn't changed at all. The left side has the titles resembling the ones used in the old guide, but aside from that, it looks completely different. The old guide has a more hand-drawn feel, with a small sun symbol at the top, a sharp title font, and a shaky line beneath the title. It's framed by a dark creamy color. The corners pinch inwards, directing the reader toward the text. It's simple, but pretty. The new guide has pale text on a dark background. I'm a dark mode user, so it sounds like a change I'd appreciate, but it's a bit weird to see it in a book. It's not something I'd expect. The title font is much more similar to the serif font used for the main text, but it has a gradient on it. Cats walk among the trees at the bottom of it. I like this page a lot, even if I think the old version is better for a book. The new page looks more like a website than a physical book, even though I'm holding it in my hands. Between the two guides, the text of Bluestar Speaks is the same. It would have been interesting to see an introduction from a new leader, maybe Firestar or Bramblestar, or from the clan founder himself, but if it's not broken, don't fix it. The new page lacks the ThunderClan symbol and has an unnecessary gradient on the ThunderClan title, but I like it more than the old version. There's one significant difference in composition that seals the deal. In the old version, a silhouette of a cat interrupts the text. It makes it more difficult to parse paragraphs at a glance. Because there's no cat silhouette in the new one, the text is much easier to read. Aside from that, both versions have the same tree at the end, but the new one has a dark green gradient instead of being solid black. Unnecessary gradients aside, it matches better with the page's frame. However, it makes the orange in Bluestar Speaks seem out of place. The text might match better if it were dark green. Now, onto the cat herself's page. The text between the two versions is exactly the same. I like the title font of the new version more. Her image in the old guide is framed with her name placed inside the frame. That makes her name easy to read and it stands out from the image while not seeming awkward. The new version has a box, gradient and all, rather than a frame. The colors complement the illustration, but having such a flat box in front of such a textured image feels a bit awkward. The banner is a nice way to give the viewer extra information, but the fur and eye colors were definitely picked directly off the illustration without consideration for the lighting. According to the coat swatch, she's white with dark off-gray eyes. This is not how she's described in the series, nor is it how she appears in the image. Colors look different when they're placed next to each other, so while she may be as white as the swatch suggests, she actually looks blue-gray in the image. One thing I can commend Owen Richardson for is his textures. Bluestar looks so pettable. Her fur is the exact direction you'd see on a real cat. Though I wouldn't think of her as fully long-furred, it does look very pleasing here. The bushy fur above her eyes makes her appear fierce. However, the illustration is very close up, showing mostly her face, which doesn't allow for much dynamic posing. Her eyes are green, which is inaccurate to the books. The old guide, while still putting the focus on her face, shows her in a more dynamic position. She's getting ready to pounce, and grass surrounds her. The background is green while she's blue, which makes her stand out a lot more than the blue-gray on blue-gray in the new art. She's short-furred, but it's still very textured. You can see the fur along her back rising, and bits of it near her ears. Her eyes are a deep blue, which is accurate to the books. However, she's very darkly colored, while she's been described as pale in the books. Neither depiction of Pinestar is particularly interesting. The new guide shows Pinestar peering through some bushes, looking directly at the viewer with his ears curled. He's very red, which makes him stand out against the dark green background. The old guide does something similar, with a very red Pinestar and a very green background. However, it doesn't have any objects in the foreground. Pinestar's chest fades into a vaguely textured green background, giving it a portrait feel. For a wild cat that lives in the woods, it's a bit strange. But many other characters in the guide have portraits like this, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's due to time constraints. Many of the characters with fully done backgrounds, such as Leafpool and Sandstorm, had at least a portion of their art completed and used for other materials in the series. Both Pinestar and Bluestar's art for the old guide was actually used in Cats of the Clans before they were used here, though Cats of the Clans could probably be considered an earlier version of the Ultimate Guide, so that makes sense. Comparing the other guides would be a good video, but let's get back on task. Before I start talking about the drawings, here are some of the rules I set for myself. 1. They must be as close to the original aspect ratio of the books as possible. I measured the updated guide and got 7.5 inches wide by 9.5 inches tall, so that's what I'm going with. This will make composition more challenging since I can't just do whatever I want. 2. I will make a version with and without a frame, since the old guide has frames and the new one doesn't. 3. I will reference the wiki's description of the character when drawing them and include as many details as I can, such as scars. I can use elements and markings from my personal designs, but I cannot use the designs by themselves, especially since they include a lot of headcanons or flat-out inaccuracies that I thought were fun to draw. Since this is the first episode of this, I decided to draw in my typical style, but I might get experimental in the future. My style is very different from McLaughlin's and Richardson's. Most of the time, I emphasize the feel of a piece over accuracy to reality, and I keep my shapes and textures simple. A lot of my art is actually inspired by James Barry, the artist for Warriors manga. His videos on drawing Greystripe helped me learn how to construct heads when I was very young. And that's part of why I want to make this series in the first place. Maybe talking about my Warrior Cats doodles and interpretations of designs will inspire some other people to pick up a pencil or put their fingers on their trackpad and start drawing. I'm nowhere near a professional, but many of the people who inspired me at that point weren't professionals either. Putting the sappiness aside, let's get talking about my drawings. To draw Bluestar, I started off by thinking about my personal interpretation of Bluestar and comparing it to her canonical and fan interpretations. Most people, including myself, viewed her as a short hair until Richardson's new art for Bluestar's Prophecy came out. I don't really like the idea of her as a full-bodied long hair, since she always felt slim to me. In my own art, I usually make her slim with a longer muzzle and a feathered tail, which gave me an idea. I could base her off an Oriental long hair. They have large ears, long muzzles, and thin limbs. They also have fluffy necks and long fur in their tails, which fit perfectly. So, to marry as many depictions of her together as possible, she's a thin and sleek but long-furred cat. My favorite color to tint gray cats is cyan, so tinting her cyan was an easy choice, especially since she's Bluestar. To contrast with her pale fur, her eyes are a deep blue, as dark as I could comfortably go without making it hard to see her pupils. Her ear tips are black in reference to her sister, since I view that as a family trait, and her tail and belly are pale as a reference to husky dogs. I'm a bit mean, and I thought it would be funny if she looked like a dog, since dogs played a role in her death. Dogs are also known for loyalty, and Bluestar is loyal to her clan to the point of giving up everything to save and lead it. Huskies are specifically known for pulling sleds through snow, which, considering her leaf bear trek to the RiverClan territory with her kits, I might be evil, actually. The pale stripe on her nose references both her description from when she was older stating that her muzzle was graying and her SSS Warrior Cats design. I based her pose and environment on the original art from Bluestar's Prophecy because it's iconic. You can't think of Bluestar without thinking of her standing on the high rock. I drew her from the side to show off more of her body and made it tilted so that her head was high up, giving the impression that she's important and strong. Her expression is stern, but there's a hint of curiosity. To further prove that I'm evil, I used a drop of water as a symbol in the pattern for her frame. Water was destined to kill her, but it also represents her outward appearance in the prophecies begin as a wise, calm leader. Like with water's ability to become pool or a roaring flood, we eventually learn that she had the capacity for great turbulence when she broke down after believing StarClan betrayed her. Pinestar is a short hair in both of his images, despite being described as thick-furred by the wiki. So, I wanted to make sure my version of Pinestar was fluffy. I've seen many people base their Pinestar designs on Maine Coons, but there are multiple larger breeds of cat, so I wanted to pick a different one. Though it didn't really come across in the end, I referenced Siberian cats for this Pinestar design. He's not specifically described as a tabby or patterned in any way, which implies that he could be a solid. Since his fur color is reddish-brown, he's probably a cinnamon cat. If I were depicting him realistically, he'd be solid cinnamon. This is a drawing, so the first thing I did was make him way brighter than he should be. I typically over-exaggerate the redness of cinnamon cats because my orange cats tend to be highlighter colored. In the same way my black cats are just really very dark blue or red, my brown cats are usually just dark scarlet. Since both artists gave him tabby stripes, I let myself take some liberties with his patterning for the sake of making him more visually interesting. First, I gave him the colored head floof that I give all my Tiger Star designs, which I give to them because I give them to all my Brambleclaw designs. Like with Bluestar's dark ear tips, I wanted the colored head floof to be a family trait. The patch on his back implies more tabby markings since I wanted to keep things simple. The white spotting was added because I wanted something to break him up a bit and draw more attention to his mouth and paws. His eyes have markings and bags under them, and I added extra shading to make sure they stood out. He's tired and old and about to make a very important decision. I placed him at the edge of ThunderClan's territory while crossing the Thunder Path for the final time. His expression is sorrowful and worried. He knows he's betraying his clan by leaving them behind, but as the strong contrast between his fur color in the background shows, he doesn't belong there. Sometimes a cat just isn't suited for clan life, even if they were clan-born. And that's all the rambling for now. Thanks for watching. This video is one of likely many. I'll definitely be redrawing characters featured in both guides and ones featured only in the new guide, but I'm not sure about ones featured only in the old guide. If there are any characters you want to see me draw that don't have images in the new guide, feel free to request them in the comments. See ya! I'm not allowed to use acronyms in my script. God, it'll just turn into me not being able to fucking read. The new text page lacks the fuck. How do I insert a whole word into my script without even? Why? How do I do it? It is certainly a fucking skill. Color point Hawk Frost. Pinestar is a short hair in both of his image, despite image singular. In both of his singular image. To draw Bluestar, I started off by thinking about my personal interpretation of Bluestar and comparing it to they, them Bluestar, everybody.